Hello and welcome to Sex, Psychics and Psychedelics, Discovering Inner Liberation. My name is BananaJane Garnett. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a lover of freedom, and a relentless explorer of the mind. Please come join me on my journey in hot pursuit of inner illumination and liberation. For more about me, you can find me at the BananaJane on Instagram. Now let's dive in. Today, I'm delighted to host Adrian Grenier, the actor, the filmmaker, the activist, and also my dear friend. Me and Adrian met on a bus in Park City in 1999, and since then, our friendship has flourished, always in unexpected ways. I'm always interested to hear about Adrian's journey. He, like me, is an explorer, and as a celebrity, he's had an unusual amount of access to a sexual journey that I'm very interested in asking him about today. Welcome, Adrian. Thank you so much for coming.
How's it for you?
That sounded just fine, that last sentence. We can keep that.
Okay, anyway, where were we?
Yeah, I'm just sort of saying that, I kept getting these over time, and I'm jumping through time, these kind of new angles of like, oh, now he's doing this, and then, just as I'm sort of getting used to this role or this identity of you as, well, first as, a celebrity, and then as a environmentalist, someone who's doing something interesting and valuable with his time, I was surprised again when I visited you in Austin and you were living in a trailer, like on a patch of land, and you were, you had like this woodwork shop, and you were like making a little house with your bare hands. I was like, damn, Adrian, okay, good. I just feel like there are these moments where you've earned my respect in new ways, and so I just wanted to
That's important some time. Respect is important to me, so that means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you jumped through those 25 years pretty fast. We could certainly break it apart and unpack it in many different ways. But beforehand, I just want to say I really do value our friendship, and you're one of my most long-standing, resilient friendships, and it always feels as if, regardless of what life changes come about in our own personal lives, I always feel confident that we will find a way to come back together in friendship. And so it feels safe, it feels nice, it feels familial, it feels there's a comfort in that. And here we are again in yet another iteration. Now, Jane, Queen.
What's that, Jane? What?
The podcast queen.
The podcast queen. I'll take it. It's funny. I was actually pimping my chair before our chat, and I noticed I was making it rather throne-like. So yeah, I guess that seems to be the decision. So I know we sort of deliberately didn't discuss what we would talk about, because we just, we decided to be badass and just flow. And but yeah, I mean, I want to talk about sex and the intersection of sex and awareness. And I want to talk about your journey and where you've gone on it. And, I mean, I have more specific questions, but I didn't know if there was any way you wanted to start with that.
Well, I'll just comment a little about your assessment or your timeline. I was definitely an artist. I considered myself an artist. I was living on the edge. I was surrounding myself with people who I found to be vital and visceral and unabashed, would push boundaries, break things, live fast and loose. And I guess it did serve creatively on some level. But I find that I always ended up on the fringe, and I was less comfortable sort of in the mainstream. And that's partly why I'm back on the Fringe again.
Yeah.
Through my stint,
that should be our theme song, no? Like a Willie Nelson riff, on the Fringe again. On the Fringe again.
Well, you do the music. That's your show. Whatever you want. You do a cover. So, just because I had said it before, I felt very comfortable in a place that was pushing boundaries and challenging convention. And partly it was a survival thing. Growing up in New York, that's sort of what it was asking of me. But when I met you, and it's funny, like I had no idea that you were impressed or that you were enamored by the crew. That I guess there was a part of me that would present my crew as, an accomplishment, like hey, look at me, and this is an extension of my ego. Look how cool I am. Look how cool we are.
Yeah.
And that was, I guess, like a really easy trick for outsiders. People were always impressed with the New York street rap.
Yeah, I fell for it, man. Hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. And I guess it had, it served its role and its purpose, but there was a lot of destructiveness in that.
Why? I still don't understand why it was a trick, because you did like the art, you did like the pushing of the envelope. Did you not like the people really? Were they more like, was it superficial or what?
Yeah, I just thought I think it was just immature. It was just the
kind of partying side of it, the sort of drinking, drugging, not having your life together kind of thing.
Well, to always have to, undercut or destroy or break things.
The rebel, like getting too attached to that rebel identity.
Yeah. Yes. The rebelliousness, and it was all coming from unmet needs and childhood wounds and and in many ways, me and my friends, we always had to outdo each other. And if any one of us started to find success outside of the Fringe, the others would come and cut. It was like tall poppy syndrome. The others would come and just cut me down and make funny. I remember when I went to Hollywood. I was broke as fuck, and I was looking to just make some money. That wasn't breaking my back, waiting tables, or doing whatever, because again, as a rebellious person, I dropped out of school. I had no viable skills. I had this romantic idea of being an artist, Jack Kerouac, on the back of a motorcycle, like, just living for experiences, Henry Miller, like indulging in all the, the fruit of life and just gorging myself and then writing about it later. And that was, a life worth living. And funny enough, I feel like all the experiences that I've had, I wouldn't dare put down on paper right now.
Wow. Let's slow down with that. That's such an interesting thing to say.
Well, because, as I lived a life that was for some future memoir or something.
God, you and I have a lot in common. I hear you. Yeah. Yeah.
And for that, it was like every experience was okay. It was like, do it for the experience, do it for the story, do it for, the future work of art, be the art. And then now I'm like, oh my God, I just did all that stuff. And most of it was, shameful. And I'm not proud of it. And I wouldn't want to share it just purely as a trophy of experience. But, it's like right now I'm in a stage of my life where I need to really contextualize it with spiritual layers and more embodied perspectives, which means a lot of that stuff is not so acute anymore.
What stuff isn't acute?
We're talking about like my younger years, but my younger years extended into
there are a lot of a lot of young years. Yes. Years of youth.
The daddy issues, we share those. I feel like we're jumping around a lot, but having grown up with you know, productive male role models, I just decided I wasn't going to grow up.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is sort of where you and I are so in parallel, right? We had the father who kind of dropped out. We had I'm globalizing, so forgive me if I'm not putting it, in words that feel exactly on point for you, and just let me know. But yeah, the sort of the fierce sort of hippie single mom, and a lot of sort of the artist archetype coming down. And I think what you said, I just want to go back to this because I thought it was really interesting what you said about that sort of living life with that sense of permission because it's art, and this sort of entitlement of that, which I can really relate to, particularly as it sort of pertains to sex in a way. I always had this feeling of like, well, it's just making a piece of theater, making a piece of art, making a little movie that, I mean, I think I have been writing about it, and I will continue to write about it because I kind of need to. And I think it's a combination of de-shaming and understanding, and, by the way, giving credit to the part, as much as we can look at the sort of entitlement of that artist figure, and maybe the lack of full kind of connectivity of that part, there is also something kind of amazing about it. In a way, it is raw survival and just going for it,
Yeah, I mean, look, we're in a continuum, right? So we're in it, and hopefully, as we pass through stages of development, we start to layer and become more complex. And so, not to disparage those stories,
yeah,
or to completely dismiss them, but how simple I was thinking at the time, that it was just the story, the shock value on the page, and there's a nihilism to it as well, which is very narcissistic, self-involved. It doesn't see beyond my ego and my present light. I had no spiritual viewpoint. I was godless. So everything was for the moment, not in the Zen, to be at peace, but to be not nihilistic and destructive, and almost rage against existence for things being, so painful.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you see, like, looking back on that kind of hedonism, and if we're looking at sort of sex in particular, do you see, when you look at that, because I know that, loosely speaking, you've gone from, the unconscious sort of just going for it, really, really eating from the buffet in terms of, your sexual access and your experience. Do you feel like, sorry, I got lost in this. I guess I'm what I'm trying to get to is the bit that you woke up to. Was that you were numbing? Was that numbing? Do you think that was numbing pain? Do you think that that's what you were doing? Or was it that over time you had more and more access to this particular kind of privileged pleasure that not everyone, well, most people don't ever get to experience?
Yeah, well, I think pleasure is a numbing agent.
I think, well, I mean, I think it can be a numbing agent.
I think we can get to a place where we only want to be in the state of feeling good, or not feeling at all.
Sure.
And we lose the value of the sharpening, necessity of the aversions and the feelings that aren't so good. They keep us on track, and I attribute that to my intuition.
You attribute what to your intuition?
My ability to navigate towards a higher version of myself, God, if you will, sort of a aspirational direction with like true depth, and not just for my own pleasure and experience, but for my relationship to the world, to the people I love, to strangers, to, society at large. How can I actually be a productive servant to the greater good? And I didn't have that perspective. It was just pleasure at all costs, which would put me out and numb me so that I wasn't able to actually participate in a larger, bigger vision of myself and the world. It was very myopic, just myopically focused on just the feeling. Not that the feeling is bad. I mean, I'm not like, trying to create a spectrum of bad and good. It's just, how can we create more depth, more sensation, more presence in the entirety of, I think if you synthesize all of our sensations, all of our senses, not only the five senses that, that are familiar to us, but also the senses that are internal, maybe more intuitive, you synthesize all of those. And that to me is wisdom. That's when you can start to navigate the world, not just in a selfish, narcissistic way, but in really a bigger, more expansive way that includes
other people,
yeah, and your future self. So now we're like jumping right into my spiritual perspective now. Great. I'm not living for myself. I'm living for the being that I have, that I will become in my reincarnation one day. My father checked out. He dipped.
Yes.
He skirted the responsibility of staying in my life, to enduring the discomfort of whatever dysfunction he had with my mother, or whatever feelings of inadequacy or weakness he was prone to, for the sake of me, right? So it's a very selfish choice. So now I can continue that pattern, that karmic pattern that was implanted in me through my abandonment issues and all the neurotic dispositions that I formed to protect myself. But ultimately, I was starting to do the same pattern.
In that you were not growing up, basically.
Well, yeah, not growing up, not taking responsibility, numbing, escaping, retreating, being passive.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that later in my life I looked at my dad, I'm like, oh my God, I'm basically just him, You see that when you like suddenly realize, like,
you just can't avoid that one, can you? It's just a bitch, right? The parents just come, they're in your body.
No, this is the beautiful thing, is we are on a continuum, and, karmically we are all, incarnations of our ancestors, and so what I find now is, now I have an opportunity, now that I'm awakened to it, is to grow up and take responsibility in ways that my father never could, so that my children don't have the same, challenges that I did. Right. And I don't even see it as like, I'm going to teach my kids how to be better. I'm going to be better so that my children witness a different version of what a father can be. And then they don't have to deal with that karmic element, piece.
Yeah.
They can deal with others. It's stuff that I'm not even aware of at this moment.
Yeah, they'll go to the next layer.
Yeah. And so if you believe in reincarnation, which I do, it's not that you, Jane, or me, Adrian, become another Jane or Adrian in a future life, but we are part of that continuum, that karmic evolution where we are all one, becoming new again. And so the future version of myself, that is born of the DNA that I leave behind, and have an opportunity in this life to paint on the epigenetics of my life now by changing my habits, changing my patterns so that I can be the best version of myself now will pass down not only naturally, genetically, but also I will demonstrate and embody in this life for those as an example. I will model in my beingness.
Yeah, and that's a different movement, isn't it? It's not the waterfall flowing down into the river, flowing down to the sea. It's it's like the ripples spreading out, right?
Mm-hmm.
You make change and the ripples spread out. I'm excited to hear this, this map from you. I think I haven't really kind of had it before, although I knew it was in the making, Can you tell me a bit more about this process of waking up? Like, when do you feel like this kind of unconsciousness or non-viability peaked? Was that sort of entourage time? How was the Hollywood thing playing into that? And how were you waking up and starting to change?
No, it was I've just woken up maybe 2
days ago. Oh, okay. 2 minutes ago. Yeah.
It's bold. It's very bold of me to say that I've woken up.
Well, I think, I always find that problematic anyway. I think we're waking up, right? It's an ongoing.
Right. But certainly between the age of 8 and 42, I was all but asleep.
Okay.
Unconscious. And to the point where when I had finally found the wherewithal to do the work that I had been avoiding for so long, the work that I needed to do to grow up, because I didn't have any external male role models to take me on that journey, to give me the rite of passage, to push me into adulthood. I just had a lot of adults teaching me how to escape, teaching me bad behavior, be macho, womanize, fight. All of the toxic masculinity that you see today has just been embedded or taught by disembodied men of the past, right? And also women who have enabled me to be that, right? Starting with, my mother, who, God bless her, as a single mom, she wanted to just make me feel good, wanted to take care of me, protect me. She didn't want to, provide the edge that I needed to feel uncomfortable enough to change.
Yeah. Again, I hear you so much on this. Yeah. Yeah.
And, and God bless her, she didn't have that, either.
They can't do it all. They can't do all the angles at the same time. It's just no way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, my mom is amazing. It's just, she's not a dad. Yeah. There's something in a masculine perspective that, a young man needs relative to a father, and same with a woman relative to a father. Not just a father, but a divine embodiment of father, ideally.
Right. Or could we, or masculine,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Not dysfunctional, not, all the negative expressions of
or not necessarily man, woman, but the person who will lead you out. I mean, do you feel like does it need to be man?
It's energy. Masculine, feminine, and all of us. But biologically, some of us are predisposed in one way or the other.
Yeah.
But when my mom used to say to me, I'm mother and father. And so she would put on the role of disciplinarian. But I knew that she didn't mean it in her entireness. So she was masquerading.
I need to really think. There's something in this that's a real lesson to me. I'm not a single mom, but I sometimes feel like that. And, I'm separated. So I'm certainly, I'm with my kids the lion's share of the time. And what you just said, that feeling of I feel often that I'm going into this overreach place, which is not my strong zone. And it makes me think of, my mom. It moves me so much, this conversation, because I'm like, oh God, the work that goes into fucking parenting is insane. But I remember her saying to me, I'm your rock. I'm your rock. I'm a rock. I'm so strong. I'm a rock. And I remember there was something about it that wasn't quite right, because I think she was trying to be a rock, but really she was the water. She said, I'm your ocean, I'm your river, I'm your stream, I'm your waterfall. I would have been like, it's a lot to be all of these elements at once.
Right. So she and it's almost as if she was trying to convince herself.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. As I do with my daughters, and I get into that sort of authority position. That's harder than I should be, but I don't know. I feel like it's needed.
Yeah. And there are some situations in which, we have to play multiple roles.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we're going to be good at it.
That's
and so not only were there many men who were not good at being male role models to me, there were, my mother just, she did the best she could, but there are aspects of masculinity that I'm now just discovering that I never had a model for. So,
like what?
I mean, it's varied and complex, and it's not like, it's an energy, it's a presence, it's a perspective, it's a willingness to. We can get into like masculine and feminine polarities and like what they both embody and how they show up energetically, and but there is a certain presence that I get from the men that I surround myself with, who I had to seek out, who in my mind are heart-centered, embodied men who are looking to give their life force to the betterment of mankind and each other, and recognize that men need other men. Yeah. We need each other to support, to hold accountable. Iron sharpens iron. We make each other better by pushing. It's not aggression, it's not violence. It's a willingness to rough play and to fight it out and to push back on each other in a loving way, in a way that says, I'm gonna, be fierce and dangerous, but I'm not here to hurt you.
Right. Like more like I'm here to call you on your ship because it's good for you. And that's how we all kind of grow together.
Yeah. And also not in like a teaching kind of.
Right. Not in the way that I would do it, which is let's sit down and have a talk. It would be, it's different.
It is just different, and I'm new to it, so I've always seeked out beta male friends, sort of the sweet, innocuous, like heady intellectual artists. Yeah. But would never trust them to protect me in a fight. And and the world is dangerous out there, right? So we're like many of us were coddled, and they were unthreatening, right? And brothers, I love you out there. It's just I realize when you look around you at the people you surround yourself with, that is you. Yeah. They're a reflection of who you are. You are who you surround yourself with. That's absolutely true. And I'll just say, I was inept. I was scared. I was emasculated. And that's how I was trained, right? To be safe, not to be dangerous. And so I was weak and vulnerable, scared. And so I had to prop up my masculinity. I had to do something with all this testosterone. So I ended up propping myself up in superficial ways to feel like the man, to get money, power, fame, status, women, all the things that made me look like, oh, I'm killing it, and like, don't fuck with me because I'm successful and I have all of the markings of, an adult man in this capitalist society, but fundamentally I was just undeveloped and scared. And
you had the markings of a success. And I think that that's an interesting thing to look at. Because I don't know. I mean, you say an adult man, and I think, yeah, there's probably a conflation of a successful man and an adult man. But I think that in the culture that we're in, there are plenty of people who are quote unquote successes who don't qualify as adults. I mean, we don't have to look far.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because our society rewards certain behavior that's, that creates more wealth for the economy, more fame for some industry, or, more stuff and things. We're, I think, spiritually misaligned in many ways. We sort of made a wrong turn at capitalism somewhere.
Yeah. I agree
but
with
we're
that.
in such a great place. We're in such a great place. I believe there's a renaissance amidst. And what I'm seeing, at least now that I'm like holding my eyes open, a little groggy, but I'm still awakening, there's so much energy being poured into, a leveling up collectively. And a lot of it is the father piece, the strong, powerful, divine masculine role models, expecting more of men. I'm expecting more of myself, and finding groups who feel the same way, and women, for men to show up for women, not in the same toxic, destructive, selfish ways, so that women can feel safe and cared for and not exploited. Yeah. And then that would create within women a higher expectation of men.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, women have expected less and less and less, and we've shown up, to serve less and less and less.
Well, 100%. And I wonder about I want to talk about the expecting more of yourself and sort of breaking that down, but I also want to touch on, you've had an unusual level of access to women, to be honest, women on a sexual level, which is certainly where you learn a lot more about people. There's a vulnerability and also there are defensiveness that kick in around sex. And I'm wondering what you noticed, if you can globalize, if you feel safe to globalize en masse about women, but like, what did you have findings? Did you notice? Did you think, wow, these women are not, they're not expecting much of me? Or, I mean, how did that go? Or they were expecting more and you gave less, or they were like, what was the dynamic?
So I was taught that seeing the good in people, despite their behavior, despite what they do, but to see the good in people, no matter what, was the ultimate value.
Yeah.
Right. And my mother, grew up with rascals, lowlifes, salt of the earth, just degenerates, alcoholics.
Salt of the earth, degenerates. That makes me laugh. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Salt of the earth maybe is not.
It's actually kind of a funny idea because they are quite salty in a way. Yeah. Yeah.
And, a dysfunctional upbringing. And so as a survival mechanism, she had to see the ultimate good. And that, I think, is also that's a mother's instinct. That's a strongly feminine instinct, is to love you despite how fucked up you are.
Right.
To hold you. It's like every kid is born, can't walk, is totally inept, can't survive, but you love them anyway, right? I mean, not that, it's just different for, I think, a man. Their ability to love comes from a different energy. So my mom taught me that, they mean well, or they're good, or they're just kids, or whatever. It's like, now in retrospect, no, from my masculine discernment, no, there is right and wrong, and that's fucked up, and that's not okay. I'm making a choice about what's right and wrong. Whereas before, I would just sort of meander amongst all of the lowlifes and all of the destructive people, I was one of them, and make excuses for myself and everyone else along the way. And I believed that I was ultimately good. I'm a good person. I'm a sweet person. I'm a kind person. I'm a loving person. And so that gave me permission to do some terrible things. I did things that, I'm surprised I survived. Also built character, but also what the fuck was I doing? Yeah. We don't have to get into all of that stuff, but I wanted to just answer your question about women because I fancied myself a lover, and I had a lot of love, and I was an only child, and I wanted more attention and more togetherness. Like everybody, let's all just consuming. I couldn't get enough to fill the empty, void of my only childness and my abandonment issues and whatever else. And because of the way my mother held me and made me feel safe, I craved that nurturing of a woman. So I was like addicted to my youthful, like adolescent coddling in many ways. And we're just running through this, but in retrospect, when I look back and I realize now that I have a greater perspective on everything, I was engaged in a lot of destructive behavior for my own comfort with the complicit exchange of the people I was engaged with. There was nobody innocent in all of it. And so that's the piece that I was horrified. So first of all, to realize, like, to wake up and be like, oh my God, I have been asleep at the wheel for 30 years. And I look in the rear view and there's like a wake of destruction. And I'm horrified at what I'd been up to in my unconsciousness. And then to see all the people that stood by and watched. And not only that, encouraged or contributed or enabled me.
Yeah.
And that was horrifying. It was like, where were the adults in the room? Who was taking care of me? I know I wasn't taking care of me. I wasn't taking care of anybody else, but also no one was taking care of me. So it's this double-edged thing where I'm both irresponsible in that I'm not being responsible, but also I'm a victim too.
Well, you were exploiting and exploited. I think,
yes.
you found yourself in a, it feels to me like that room got kind of smaller and smaller, or maybe more and more vivid to you, which is sort of the taking room, right? You're taking from others, they're taking from you. Everyone wants something, but it's dry.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, then you have some people who decide that they're going to play the victim role, right? And they're the first ones to say, I was wronged, or I feel wronged. And you're the reason, right? And so I can sit here. I can sit before you and take responsibility for all of the things that I've done, and I want to, and I do. But I also have to recognize that I also was not skilled. I had my childhood wounds, my abandonment issues. I had men that taught me wrong, and I had men that not only abandoned me, taught me how to be macho and womanize, as like a masculine expression, and then men that were inappropriate with me sexually. Not to drop a bomb, but me too, right? So I was also reacting to all of my wounds, close my eyes, like, I'm not going to feel all that stuff. That's too painful. So I'm going to seek pleasure, numbing, escape, sleep at the wheel, engage with others that are also turned off or numbing or seeking. And together we were complicit in creating this culture that's what it is. Look around you. This is the fucking culture we're engaged in.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for sharing that. And it's totally fucking relevant because I think, sexual wounds get sexualized. There's a sexual quality to a sexual wound. Sex attracts sex, wounds attract wounds. And so we get into this fucking hall of mirrors of sexual trauma, which is what I believe a lot of porn is. And I'm not saying all of it is, but I feel like that's what's happening, this sort of reverberation of harsh sexual trauma and, wanting to feel, but wanting not to feel, and wanting to resolve, but fuck it, I'd rather numb. And, so I think that the impetus towards the sex again and again, or the wrong kind of quote unquote wrong kind of sex, it's very much the nature of the beast and not to be condemned, because on a, I think, psychological or spiritual level, we return again and again to the thing that is not healed and the thing that is not resolved. But yes, I hear you. It takes two to do the wound on wound action.
Yeah. And so I am really practicing now, reconciling those opposites, like, and also transcending them, right? So
reconciling which opposites?
Well, the I am both the perpetrator and the victim.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Or I have engaged in both.
Yes.
But now I can rise above and recognize that neither of those define me. So it gives me permission to envision a new identity and then dare to step out of the old patterns into a new state of presence, a new embodiment, which means I can recognize those aspects that are within me and honor them as my experience, keep them as guide rails for direction, and then also give myself permission to be other than that. It doesn't define me. I'm not a monolithic, absolute, static state.
Yeah, you're not a finite thing or a finished thing.
No, I am evolving. So it's like a tricky thing to both acknowledge, honor the aspects of my past that have been both destructive and also wounded. Yeah. And then also recognize that I don't have to remain in either.
Well, absolutely, because that's identifying with the wounds of the past. I was just having this conversation with a friend because we're both going through a version of the same kind of question around therapy, and whether therapy at large does more harm or more good. Because as you know, I'm a therapist, and there's a lot that I really value about my profession. I'm very grateful for what it's given me and taught me, and I hope that I've contributed at least as much to other people. But I also have really run into some sort of roadblocks with it in terms of my experience as a client, and also just being around a lot of people who do a lot of therapy and are trying to grow. And I say trying to grow, it kind of brings me to this thing about therapy that I don't like, which in general, it's past based, it's story based. There's, because we're looking for answers and we're looking to plant ourselves in something. If we're with a therapist and we're new to the game and they say, you're insecurely attached, you're like, okay, phew, now I've got something I can call myself. I can look it up on Google and I can tell my friends I'm insecurely attached. And maybe when I go on the next date, I'll tell them as well. And, got to like reinforcing some really bad shit. And so yes, I think but then at the same time, is it useful to learn about insecure attachment? 100%. But do you also completely need to drop that story and make space for a new one? 100%. So it's what is it like being in the kind of crosshairs of past and future, the past stories and being honest about it, but also total spaciousness around the future.
Yeah. I mean, you have to alchemize. You're an alchemist. It's like you take all of the ingredients, but you have to, you have to orient yourself to where you want to go, and don't stay in the past. The past is over, right? And the future doesn't exist. There's only the present moment. So what are you doing in this moment to create new patterning of the person that you envision for the future with the guide rails of your past experiences as intuition? I see that as like my intuition. It's like when I'm feeling in my body, when I can be present in my body, all of the things that I was avoiding, all the sensations that I numbed myself from so that I could feel nothingness or pleasure, I was numbing all of the parts of the pain that was telling me, don't go this way. Don't do that. Don't be like your dad, like all that pain. Don't, that thing didn't feel good. Change that pattern. So feeling into the body where it's like, ow, it hurts. But man, now I can use that to now step into a new.
Yeah, I mean, that resonates with me. Avoiding pain like the plague, I'm just like, I don't want to do that. I've seen that and I don't want it. And yet here it is, it's around. So yeah, I think the truth of all of this stuff is it really is in the body. And that's why I more and more really value any kind of somatic work, where you're kind of traveling into the truth of the body rather than kind of the stories of the mind. And did you have an experience like that? Did you have mentors like this? I want to hear just like a little bit more about, did you have particular teachers in this process of kind of coming online?
Yes. I was living in my head, in my ego.
In your what? Your what?
My ego.
Oh, ego. Yeah. I've heard of it. Yeah.
Identity as the badass New Yorker kid who's like, street rap, artist, cool, all the things that I, was engaged in. And ultimately I had no God. I had no higher purpose. I had no father figure to look up to model towards. But I wasn't in my body. I was numbed and escaped, and I was floating 20 feet off the ground for a significant amount of time. And through shutting off the mind, meditation, breath work, increasing sensation in my body, just a lot of it's just feeling, like starting to recognize the feelings that you didn't know were there. You're like, oh my God, wow, for the first time I felt, my kidney, when I've just been distracted or like unaware, unconscious, you can actually take your focus and pinpoint it to different parts of your body and be like, oh, wow, I feel that. But if you're distracted by all the things, then you're not, right? So just through those kinds of practices, shutting off the mind and being in the body, what's coming up, what's wanting me to distract, and then breath work, breathing, some like shamanic breath work. All of that has allowed me to re-enter my body. And I'm like, oh, wow, there's so much information.
I like the way you just sort of landed in your chair with a bump. I kind of saw it in that moment. Just, whoa, here I am.
and in every moment I have to do it. Like, oh, wait, no. Have I been checked? Oh, no, here I am again.
Yeah.
But I had an incredible guide who really I attribute to having such a powerful magician that she was able to find me in empty time and space, meet me where my soul was, and bring me back into the present, into my body. It's a lot like, did you see Poltergeist?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Well, I don't even remember which, might have been the sequel or something, but there's a television that's just static, and it sort of represents the portal to the other world of spirits and ghosts. and they had to send the girl in to the television. You know, when she turns around, there's like static on the television, and she turns, she goes, "They're here." You never seen that?
No.
Oh,
I want to
but but they had to like tie a rope around her waist so they could pull her back, so they could rescue her. So I feel in many ways she found me and brought me back, and it was through somatic channeling of some fucking dark forces.
Okay, I think we have to I just about understand that, but I think for the listener who doesn't, I realize we should clarify what we even mean by somatic, and then somatic channeling.
Can I let you do that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, somatic is basically to do with the body. So somatic experiencing, which is something that I've been trained in, is about connecting to the truth of the body through felt experience. So while the mind has its stories, the body has its stories too, and they may not come in the same way. So it's really about just tuning into whatever the body is actually experiencing, which might be pleasure, or it might be pain, or it might be something neutral, or it might be something else. But basically tuning into the body's own intrinsic energy systems and what wants to be expressed from that perspective. Does that feel like? Yeah.
And I, for so long, believed that I was all about truth. I wanted truth, right? But in retrospect, it was really just an abstraction of what I thought was true in my head based on my perspective that I could fight for or argue for or outwit someone else.
Yeah, what is that? Is that, I mean, again, I can really relate to this sort of the sword of truth that was always gave me something to hold on to, this idea of this sort of head-based. I mean, I'm sure I do it all the time still. It's just like this head-based sort of search for the thing underneath the thing, and what is that about? I mean, attachment, and I suppose.
Yeah. And by the way, I was attached to the truth, the ego truth. Like, how can I rhetorically out argue you, and therefore now I know the truth because I was able to win this rhetorical argument.
Right. Therefore I exist, because if I don't know what the fuck's going on, I'm done for.
Yeah. I have certainty now. I can rest in what I know.
Yes. I hold your thought for 1 second, because I just want to say that's such an interesting idea, that the quote unquote truth from that mind perspective, it feels like a substitute for the body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because what I've come to realize, not realize, but realize in my body is there's, if you want to know the truth, you close your eyes, you close your mind, and you feel it. Because whatever you're feeling, that there's nothing you can deny about that. It is closer to what is true than any, game you play with your head.
Yeah.
So in my effort to find more truth, I got more in my body. I got more feeling, so that when I step into a situation and I wanted to know, what's this girl's angle? What does she really want from me? Instead of asking her, where she's going to project all these stories and, try and make herself look good and hide all of her shadows. And what she really wants is some daddy issue thing or something. I would just shut out all the words, and I would feel what she's projecting energetically. And I would feel into my body, and I would know the truth. And I would know what is. And that was practice. I mean, it took a lot of practice, and it's still obviously something I need to practice.
You're talking about a partner practice.
I was just making an example, but it's with anything, right? Because before, when I would engage with women for, relationships, for sex, for whatever, or people generally, I would hear what they were saying. And I would take that and I would say, okay, well, you said this, so therefore that's what you mean. And then I would not, and then I would just hold them to it and be like, well, you said, you said you were cool and now you're not cool. So what's up? Like, you suck, right? You're lying. As opposed to saying, I feel you. I know where your heart is at. I know where you are energetically. I know, like, whatever words you're spewing, they're designed to deceive or to hide something that you can't hide in the feeling truth, in the somatic truth.
Yeah. And I that brings me back to sex, because sex can be numbing, and again, sort of they're just replaying of worn sort of grooves and trauma, but it can also be a place to tune in and wake up. And I always love thinking about what the definition of sexual healing is, because I love both of those words and I like them together, and I love the song, and I think you and I have spoken about this, but yeah, what you were saying made me think about the idea of sexual healing, which feels like an unnumbing process, a waking up to the truth of feeling, not emotion, which seems to be more like the combination of thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, but this, I guess what I'm getting at, right, is people take for granted that if they have sex, they're feeling because they came, or because they got hard or something. Like, yeah, that's an aspect of feeling, but I'm talking about like feeling to the absolute capacity of your whole entire beingness, your body, everything, from your toes to your head to like the deeper, innards of your psyche, right? So, so increasing your capacity to feel. That's what is possible, but we've narrowed it down to this really, small definition of feeling, of sex.
Yes.
We've pornified it.
We've pornified it, and sex and performance feel so intertwined in terms of culture and the images we receive. It's sex and performance, sex and performance, sex and performance, sex and performance. And it feels like, that's default education for our kids. And they learn to perform very, very quickly, whether it's through just sort of mimicking Instagram or getting their hands on porn, which we all know is only like a small click away. I think it's like the whole culture seems like it's sped up and it's accelerated. And again, talking about sort of getting stuck in small rooms, I feel like sexuality is stuck in this little room, when actually it's this vast energy that can be so many things. So many things to so many people. I mean, I think it's a massive zone of waking up, and it's life force. And it's interesting that sex has become this sort of performative, commodified thing, because really it's sort of like, if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, it's like we're being given permission to infantilize and squander our life force, which is really like the fucking essence of rebuilding and re-envisioning and recreating. So I think it's a really big area of potentially waking up, because I think, this is the biggest renewable organic fuel we could get our hands on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, sex is a powerful force for creation. It is a creative force, and when I start to become more sensitive, I start to recognize that I've been playing way too small, and as I get older and I start to wrestle with my own mortality, but also leaning into my greater spiritual perspective of the fact that we are infinite beings, I want to create life. I want to have children. So that, sex is a really important aspect to that. And when I start to look at, how I treat women and the way I see a woman, it's like not as an object of pleasure for the moment. It's as literally the creator of life. Like, women have the capacity to harness all of that sexual energy, all of that feelingness, and open up to new life. And I feel sad that it took me so long to recognize that, but I'm happy that I'm here, because it now gives me, my masculinity, purpose. Now I know why I'm here. Now I know what my reason for being is to protect women and protect my partner and create a safe space so that she can open up enough to the vast energy that it would take to literally bring life into this world. And that's no small thing. It's way bigger than just coming.
I am. It's such a massive perspective shift from one place to the other, from objectification to honoring the sacred.
Mm. Yeah.
It's funny. My one of my daughters said this thing that always stuck with me. She said, one of the hardest things to realize is that other people are real. And I always thought that was so true. It's so easy to live in fantasy.
Mm.
But to think that we all carry these amazing sort of universes within us. I wonder sometimes if it's that we really can't handle this much glory, so we have to make up victim stories. What you're describing is such sort of, it's so beautiful. It's such waking up to awe and reverence of the other. I mean, it could be, we could flip it and we could say, I could be waking up to the masculine, which I think I also am, especially when I see it presented in this way. I feel like when you come to me with these thoughts and these intentions, not saying you might not screw up in daily life, I'm sure you do, as we all do, but just to even have these conversations, to put these intentions out there, to feel what they feel like, and the sort of the simplicity in a funny kind of way of these sacred ideas, which are really, we're living to honor each other and honor the new life coming through. I feel like this is bringing out the best.
If I gave myself permission to be on Entourage for 10 years and like before that do unspeakable things in my life that, it did no favors to the universe, I think I can speak a little bit to something more divine. And I say, let's make life sacred again. Let's make life sacred again.
Let's make life sacred again. I am completely on board. I love hearing about your journey. I just wanted to circle back. I know I've had a lot of your time and energy, and so I don't want to keep you overly much, but I just wanted to go back to, you'd said about expecting more of yourself and taking responsibility. And I just wondered if there was a way to get a little bit more granular with that, like break that down a little bit, because those words appealed to me and I wanted to know more what you meant, like in a sort of terms of daily practice. And I don't necessarily mean like yoga or meditation. I just mean like, how do you hold yourself to task?
Well, first I have to dare to expect more from myself by giving myself permission to take full responsibility for everything in my life. And I believe we are all 100% responsible for what happens in our life. I cannot blame my father. I cannot blame my mother. I can't blame all the people that, didn't slap me soon enough so that I could realize.
I mean, you'd like to though, wouldn't you? You wouldn't mind blaming this guy.
this is my choice. And
Yeah.
therefore, now, going forward, I get to choose. And I am responsible absolutely for what I do and what I put out in the world. So it creates a certain level of intensity, you know, a little bit of, you know, it's edgy. It's like more edgy than I've ever been.
You're more really punk than you ever were. I love it. We're back to that. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Oh my God, I look around my life and like, it's going to be how it's going to be how it is based on how I show up, based on my skills and my capacity to, you know, do I have the skill set to actually be responsible in all the ways that I imagine I will be needed, not only for myself, but for my family, for my community, and for a world that's volatile as fuck. And who knows, are there going to be zombies one day? Like, can I truly be a protector? And can I truly continue to embody this spiritual vision? Or am I going to get slapped around, taken out quickly, or corrupted and you know, owned by other forces? So it's really exciting to say, okay, now I have a vision for what is possible, and I believe that it is possible. And it requires that I take 100% responsibility for absolutely everything that's happened in the past, which means I have to own it, as uncomfortable as it is. But in owning it and taking that responsibility, it means that I actually can do it, that I do have the power to be the things that I envision. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think so. I think that it sounds like, for the most part, this is a decision. It's harnessing intention and getting really clear that you want to take full responsibility, and then manifesting from there minute to minute. I don't know if you resonate with what I'm about to say, but I feel like the more I wake up, the less I project what it's going to look like actually down the line, and the more I just show up, you know, because I now know, or I increasingly know, what I value. So I some of what I'm hearing is just getting really clear on your value, you know, what your values are and what excites you. And I really feel that you are genuinely excited about this vision that has been informed by the past, but is definitely not the past. This is a new Adrian. And when I say new, I don't mean that in any way that's belittled, because I've seen this new part of you, you know, in sort of these incubation stages. And now we're another jump on than, you know, our last lunch that we had when we got into this. So I see it growing.
And growing up really means taking on responsibility, being the responsible party in the room, being the adult that's going to take responsibility for every moment. And so I now take on, you know, I see everything. I'm like, okay, so I want to embody that change. So it's an extreme amount of like pressure and responsibility, but extreme privilege. The other day, I bought some land and I'm building a community, and this is where I'm pouring my life force in.
Yeah, you got a little bit cut out there. So you wait. So you bought some land and you're farming it and creating community. Is that what it is?
Whereas before, I would always defer responsibility to others, delegate, or avoid responsibility, in seek of constant escape and pleasure. Now I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I will learn how to.
Yeah, let's get concrete about this. So is it like, who's going to weed the garden? I'll do it. Is it like that kind of thing? I mean,
yes. And recognize that there are a lot of things that I don't know. So I have to learn. Right. So keeps me really busy. So I feel fulfilled. But now the more responsibility I take, the more meaning my life has, because now
I have something to give, something to offer, to be of service to the world. Whereas before I would just hire somebody and like poo-poo them for charging me more than I could appreciate it's actually worth. You know, this sort of bourgeois escapism where I'm like, oh, I'm too busy to do it. So I'm going to, you know, hire somebody who's, you know, who I won't respect because
they won't do it as well as I would have done it myself, but my time's more important. That bullshit.
Exactly.
Yes.
Or I'm not going to do dishes. I mean, I remember when I first started making money in Hollywood, I was like, I will never do dishes again. That was like,
that must have been a fun thought. I quite like that thought. Yeah. Yeah.
Literally, I would just throw dishes in the sink and let other people do it.
Yeah. It's a great example.
You know, now I do dishes because I'm the guy who does dishes now.
Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing for the rest of the weekend? Yeah. Come over.
I will. And it gives me an opportunity to be in, you know, movement meditation, just going into the present moment. It also means that I can show up I can at least clean the world by one dish, you know, in every moment. But then that extends out to the land. So now I need to learn the skills to take care of the land, to steward the land so that I don't have to exploit it for, revenue or like money, but I can actually preserve it in its natural state because that reflects my values in terms of our relationship to nature and each other. I can reorient myself towards family and do. So I have a lot of work to do to be the fully realized adult man, because I'm just in my, I'm an apprentice in so many ways. I'm learning, but better late than never, I guess.
Fucking man. Listen, it's kind of circles back to the beginning in a way, I mean, we're fellow explorers. And so I recognize, I see myself in you and you in me in that way. And what I see in you that I hope I'm as open as you in this. I'm not sure though. I feel like you are so open to learning, and it's just a great thing. It just means you can just keep on, you can keep on blooming in life. If that's the case, nothing has to be so dreadful. Nothing has to be so apocalyptic. It's all just a part of the fucking great unfolding.
The great unfolding. That's right. And it is great and it is long. I do believe that we live in infinite life. And the way I look at it is like, if you can see the world in its infinite possibilities, it gives you permission to be absolutely present in the moment and do your darndest best. There's no time pressure. You don't have to get it all in. You don't have to eat all the cupcakes before you die. You don't have to watch as much porn as you can because, like it's going to hurt when I die. No, these moments are precious and we can take absolute responsibility, and we get to, and that's such a privilege. And yeah, it is exciting. I believe we are creative forces. That is the one thing that makes us unique as a species is we are extremely creative. Like we're not born pre-programmed. We're not born hardwired. We have the capacity to see the world, envision what's possible, take information from the past, and then synthesize it and be creative. And so we can actually invite in a new world, and course correct from where we made that wrong turn in capitalism and oppression and imperialism, and into a new renaissance. Right? Come on, guys, let's do this. Let's have a renaissance. I think we are having. I think there's a million different revolutions co-occurring right now, and at some point, hopefully, they'll all just fucking connect up. When you were talking, I was thinking about movie making. I was thinking sort of old school, hands-on. The tapes of footage that you can cut and you can splice. And I was thinking, we can feel free to use the past like that. We can
acknowledge it, see a big chunk of that footage, put it in the trash, take the piece that we like, put it into a new narrative. I mean, it's, that freedom is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, but you have to recognize that you are the editor, right?
Yes.
You are the creator.
Yeah.
And that means
taking responsibility.
Taking full responsibility. And so taking full responsibility and being absolutely 100% honest. And honesty isn't what's in here, it's what's in your body and feeling it, so that you can make responsible, consensual choices about what you're doing. Because if you feel it, you'll know if it's right or wrong. You'll know if it feels right in your body. That's how you navigate. Right?
Yeah, you navigate through feeling, not through thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, I love you.
Love you too. You've always made a lot of sense to me, and you've always pushed me into a space of, I guess you've given me permission and the support and the love enough to have ideas that, I don't think I could have had alone.
Really?
There's something about the relationship. Yeah.
Oh, I'm absolutely. So happy to hear that. So happy to hear that. That's wonderful.
It's that 1 + 1 = 3 synergy.
Yeah, no, likewise. I feel that I've always felt supported and inspired by you. And I miss you. I'd like to spend more time with you. I always just enjoy it so much.
Can you turn this pandemic off, please? And
sure, baby. Done. Oh, we're coming out of it. We're coming out. Adrian surprised me with the depth of his travels, and once more the conversation about sex itself surprised me. I feel like when we talk about sex, we're always talking about so many other things. There's the subtext and there's the text. And here we've been talking about what sex has to say about our maturity levels, our confidence, the level of trauma that we've been through, what we've been exposed to, what we've had access to. There are so many factors to look at. It's my hope that right now, in our current awakening to the breadth and the depth of sexual trauma we've experienced individually and as a culture, that we're unleashing not only this enormous amount of rage and catharsis, but I'm hoping too that we're releasing this wave of empowerment and human potential that we get to use to rethink ourselves and our systems entirely. Thank you, Adrian, for boosting these questions and for exploring with me. I hope we'll do some more.